All right, here we are, week 3 of Pitt practice. Pittsburgh Sports Now Pitt beat writer Alan Saunders is here. Alan, I guess the biggest news of the day is one of the players that did practice, a guy that Pitt's going to be counting on a lot on their offense.
Yeah, Aaron Matthews is back. It's no secret what he brings. He's big, tall, rangy, fast, and a guy with a little bit of experience in that wide receiver core. Pitt announced his absence for the first 2 weeks as for personal reasons. It didn't look like he was right back into the mix on offense. He still wasn't working with the ones today, but he's going to be a big part of this offense going forward. I thought as soon as the news broke that Trey Tipton was out for the season, it seemed to me like Aaron Matthews was pretty clearly the guy, then the next guy to pick up the slack. They're not quite the same player, but Matthews has experience. He's got good hands. He can go to tough areas. He presents a matchup problem, and he is a natural fit at that outside spot. With Pitt now going to what looks to be like a 3-receiver look, that would put Matthews and Weah as bookends at the outside with Quadri Henderson in the slot. I think that's by far the best lineup possibility for them at wide receiver. So I think Matthews getting back and getting into practice is big news for Pitt. We'll see how quickly it takes him to get back up to speed, get adjusted to a new offense, which he did see in the spring but hasn't seen live against actual defenses yet. So, it's probably going to be a little bit of a process, but I think Aaron Matthews getting back into the fold is a really, really big positive sign for Pitt's offense.
As far as on defense goes, they got a newcomer today. He's probably not going to play any sort of role this year, maybe even next year, but Pitt has a new addition to the team today.
Yeah, Colin Smith, track athlete from Maryland near Washington, D.C., just added to the roster today, made his first practice. And, he's still feeling things out, obviously, getting to know how the team stretches, the way they look, the way they do things. But it's an injection of speed. He's also, interesting to me, going to play corner, working out with the defense. So, that's a position where they could probably use a little bit of depth. They could probably use a little bit of speed. So I thought that was an interesting decision to me to put him on defense. He's mostly just an athlete, a guy that can run, did a little bit of everything in high school, played some quarterback, played some wide receiver, returned some kicks. That's probably, honestly, the role that I would see him making the biggest impact going forward is, as Quadri Henderson becomes a bigger part of this team's offense, if there's a guy that can be just as explosive as him on the kick return, I think that makes sense to get him out of that role and to make his reps more impactful on offense. So to me, I think if there's a path to the field for Colin Smith, it's as a special teams player, primarily. But it was interesting to me that he's wearing a blue shirt and is on defense today. And just interesting athlete, interesting recruiting process, interesting addition for Pitt halfway through training camp.
Speaking of cornerback, coaches talk all the time about how possibly injuries will play a role in who plays and doesn't play. We're seeing it here at the cornerback position for Pitt. Somebody started out looking strong. Injuries have set him back, and now we have a new face that Pat Narduzzi is once again bringing up during his meeting with the press today.
Yeah, I thought during the spring that Felipe Motley really took a step forward and sort of established himself as the primary option at the corner position opposite Avonte Maddox. To be honest, I thought at some points in the spring that Motley was better than Maddox. Motley was drawing Jester Weah when they went ones-on-ones. And, he's a little bit bigger than Maddox, so he doesn't have some of the same matchup problems that he does. I really expected big things from Motley this year. And, of course, then he goes down with an injury early in camp. Pat Narduzzi hasn't updated us on his status, but did say that he's part of that group that none of these injuries are season-ending. But obviously, Motley hasn't been seen practicing since then. So it's looking like there's going to be another guy there, at least at the beginning of the season. Dane Jackson is the player that's gotten the most reps with the ones, sort of a next guy up sort of mentality. But Pat Narduzzi keeps bringing up Damari Mathis, true freshman, as a player that's made a lot of impact. And he said, shocked me in that here's a true freshman coming into a defensive scheme that he's probably never seen before, facing the type of athlete that he's probably never seen before. And from the reports that we've heard, he's been impressive. And there's not exactly a whole lot of depth at that corner position. If you look, after a guy like Jackson, there's Theron Coleman, and really then the freshman. There's not a whole. Rob Boatwright is a walk-on who we've talked with Coach Hill about a couple times now as a guy that maybe could be in the mix for some playing time. So whenever you're talking about a walk-on being in that spot, it's not it's not unreasonable for a true freshman to step up and make an impact and maybe grab some playing time this year.
Last question here, Alan. Legitimately, we're 3 weeks into camp. We're starting week 3. We have 2 more after this. From what you've seen so far, legitimately, how many jobs do you believe are open on the starting O&D?
Not too many. I think there are some that are, I guess, unsettled as far as who is, like, I don't know who the starting running back will be the first game of the year, but to be honest, I don't really think it matters that much. I think all 3 of the experienced guys, Olsen, Hall, and Moss, are going to play a lot, and it's going to be a who is hot on what day kind of thing for them pretty much the whole season, unless somebody really takes a hold of the job and runs with it. But there's the competition there will happen during the games. There's no real competition there during camp. Same thing as wide receiver. I guess Maurice French is probably going to play a lot. I don't know how much and where. Aaron Matthews is going to play a lot. I don't know how much and where. But as far as like actual starting jobs that it seem like they're still up for grabs, I think center is still the biggest one on the offense. Connor Dentino, he has moved over from defensive tackle. He's being given a lot of opportunities, but the coaching staff loves Jimmy Morrissey, a walk-on from Eastern Pennsylvania who just seems to do everything right. He's a little bit undersized compared to Dentino, but he has picked up the offense really well. He's a favorite of the coaching staff. I think that's still a position that is legitimately up for grabs. On defense, I think the field safety position between Jay Stalker and Phil Campbell is very much still up in the air. And other than that, it seems like things are pretty well settled out. Corner, obviously, maybe one of the younger guys can unseat Dane Jackson, but I think at this point, I would think Jackson goes into the year a prohibitive favorite to start unless something really bad happens between now and then. I just don't see it. I don't see redshirt freshman, a true freshman, unseating a guy with game experience, played a lot in the bowl game, especially not early in the year. So, there really aren't that many question marks, and it's kind of interesting because it's a very young team, but there are a lot of young players that have solidified roles, and the few upperclassmen they do have, they're going to play. There's no question. So I think that makes for a camp. Pat Narduzzi was asked during his press conference at Media Day, will there be more or less or designations on the depth chart? And what that means is, sometimes he'll have 2 players listed as a co-starter at a position. Reggie Mitchell and Terrence Webb did that last year at the field safety position. One start, the other would start. They both play a lot. He said this year there's not going to be as many of that, and that's because the guys that are upperclassmen are going to play, and there are just fewer positions where it seems like there's 2 guys that are really neck and neck. So not a lot of big battles going on this late in camp. Like you said, Pat declined to name a starting quarterback today, but it's going to be Max Brown. There's a bunch of other positions like that where there may technically still be a battle, but it looks like the guys at the top of the depth chart right now are going to be the guys at the top of the depth chart beginning of the season against Youngstown State.
All right, that's it here from the South Side. We'll check in later this week, but remember to check out Alan's work all week long on Pittsburgh Sports Now.